You also visit Angola Prison, you visit Goree Island, you take us on a tour, the reader on a tour through New York and help them understand the city of New York with new eyes. You could not have written this book without going to Louisiana, though. And anybody who follows you on what my mother calls the Twitter knows that you love your family, you love soccer, and you love your home state of Louisiana. And a place where there are plantations all over the place. And many of them are the sites of family reunions and weddings and things like this. But you went to a plantation, the Whitney Plantation, which is dedicated to helping people understand the lived experience of being enslaved. And one of the features is that the man who created the Whitney Plantation, to the consternation of his neighbors, decided to focus on children to help you understand what lives were like for people who were born into slavery and would likely die into slavery, and some of whom, as you visited the Garden of Angels, died quite young because the life was so hard. You were doing this as a young parent yourself. Is that one of the reasons you focused so much on the children at the Whitney plantation, and that you wanted the reader to really think about their lives?
Yeah, I worked on this book starting in May of 2017 when I watched the Confederate statues come down in my hometown of New Orleans. And, I was watching the statues of Robert E. Lee, P.G.T. Beauregard, Jefferson Davis, leaders of the Confederacy come down in this city um, that had raised me. And my son was born that same month in May of 2017. And so my experience in writing this book is inextricably linked to having become a father to one young child and then 2 years later to another. And one of the things that was most interesting about having become a father and going to a place like the Whitney is that the experience of seeing how slavery specifically impacted children was a much more it was a profoundly visceral experience in a different sort of way than it might have been. There's a statue of an angel holding
Mhm.
the a child who's passed away, an infant who's passed away, and and it is impossible for me at that moment when I have a 2 year old son, or an almost 2 year old son, and my wife was 8 months pregnant with a daughter, for me to look at that and not consider what that meant for people living through that period. And also to I think part of what the Whitney also did is really focusing on the children with the statuettes sort of sitting and scattered throughout the property is that for so long in my own understanding of slavery, I thought of the sort of spectacle of cruelty. I thought of the physical abuse. I thought of the image, the famous image of the slave man with scars etched across his body like a spider. Uh, and I thought of the, washing fruits and this famous scene where Kunta Kinte is being beaten. These are the depictions that we get of slavery. But for some reason, I had never fully considered, I don't think until I began the process of writing this book, the nature of family separation during slavery and what that meant. And while I can certainly never know what it meant, to the extent that I can think about it and empathize. I remember sitting at the Whitney, sitting down on a bench, and just taking a moment and imagining what it would be like if I were in my home with my family and I woke up and my children were gone, had been disappeared overnight, and I had no idea where they were, and I had no idea if I might ever see them. And I can't even bring myself to fathom how I would even saying it. You become full, right? I can't even bring myself to fathom what that. But the part of what I more fully understood after going to a place like the Whitney, that this was the omnipresent reality, the omnipresent threat that hung over millions of enslaved people for every day of their lives for generations, over the course of centuries, was that you could be separated from the people you love at any moment, from your children, from your husband, wife, from your parents, from your community, and how devastating it is. Not only the physical act of separation very clearly, but the idea that it could possibly happen at any moment. And so the psychological terror and the way that psychological terror could be wielded by enslavers um, I had a much more profound understanding of it, and I think I had a much deeper understanding of it because I was able to look at my own children, consider what it would mean if somebody threatened to take them away or did take